In this video, I am going to tell you exactly what I would do if I was to wake up skinny tomorrow and I had to build muscle as fast as possible. So for all you guys out there that maybe do feel a bit skinny, that always struggle to build muscle, maybe you're a bit more of an ectomorph, this is the video for you, because I'm going to hopefully be able to break down exactly what I would do in your situation, which is going to get you hopefully adding another 10, 20 pounds of muscle, get you in amazing shape, build a healthy metabolism, and essentially the blueprint to you being able to stay in shape for the rest of your life. Now, back to where I actually started. Now, I actually used to be extremely skinny, and I'm going to put a photo on the screen now of what I looked like, obviously, when I was kind of in my teens. Very skinny. I've always had my abs, but I've been one of those skinny guys with abs, which doesn't really count, to be honest. Lean, kind of a little bit scrawny when I was younger. Didn't have a huge amount of confidence, to be honest, but I quickly changed that because I got in the gym, made a lot of mistakes, but I built muscle pretty quickly. And as soon as I got to probably around 16, 17, I already had a pretty respectable physique. Like, you could see that I trained. I developed on my chest quite quickly. Again, I'll throw something on the screen here. You can kind of start to see that, like, I had that kind of athletic look to me. And then as soon as I hit 18, 19, 20, like, this is where my physique just kind of started to improve a lot more. And yeah, from there, obviously, I've got to where I am today. I'd probably say my physique has pretty much stayed the same now for like the last 5, maybe even 6 years, where I've actually got to a place now where I'm happy with my physique. I've been working a lot more on my endurance. I've been working a lot more on more of a hybrid approach, because I've kind of just built the basis of how to be able to maintain. In my opinion, have built enough muscle where having more muscle now would just not even really serve me. It wouldn't be any more functional. So there would be no real reason for me to want to build more muscle at this point, which is a good place for me to be. So I'm working more on kind of maintaining muscle mass right now, getting fitter, improving cardiovascularly, and working towards my next goals. So that's my kind of background. But anyway, if I was to wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden, I don't know, I got a terrible illness and I lost 30 to 40 or 20 to 30 pounds of muscle, and I, was back down to being, I don't know, like 70 kilos or something like that. I'm about 6 foot, so if I was 70 kilos, yeah, I'd probably have a pretty big deficiency in muscle, considering right now I'm about 90. So let's say I drop 20 kilos of muscle overnight. Hopefully that never happens, but this is exactly what I would do to, get that back quick as possible, but actually also staying in shape throughout the entire process anyway, because I would still want to be on this journey feeling confident and feeling good. Whereas when you do, the dirty bulk, that doesn't really serve you in any way. Whether I'd gain a little bit more muscle faster, probably not. Dirty bulking is probably the fastest way to just get fat. And it's just an excuse for undisciplined people to try and eat a lot of food and get away with, eating all this processed food and calling that a bulk, which in reality, that's not the case, guys. And there's actually a lot of studies that show that you are not going to build muscle any more optimally by eating, over a certain amount of calories. It just doesn't make sense. Maybe if you're enhanced, right? If you're a bodybuilder and you are on an off season, and you are taking PEDs, well, yeah, like your rate of muscle gain is probably going to be a lot higher. So it kind of is more advantageous to eat more calories and actually then be able to build more muscle. And the problem is that I've seen now is that a lot of the bodybuilding methodology has kind of crept over to general population. So like for you who's watching this right now, you probably have never even considered or thought about bodybuilding, but I'm sure you probably read some kind of magazine or a bodybuilder on Instagram, and you've looked at that approach and thought, oh, maybe that's what I need to do. When in actual fact, being a regular guy or being a normal kind of, person that's not an athlete or bodybuilder that wants to be in amazing shape, a high performing man, you don't need to do a lot of these things, right? And the dirty bulk is one thing that I absolutely 100% would stay away from, because it's not advantageous. Yes, you can, obviously you want to be building muscle, but getting fat and eating a massive excess of calories kills your confidence, kills your energy, you get bad skin, you actually just don't feel that great. And it's just not something that I would recommend really to anybody. So guys, what would I actually do? Firstly, I would just focus on finding my maintenance. So that is the first thing you really need to focus on. And actually, before I even get into that in any way whatsoever, guys, before you start looking at really gaining muscle and start going down this route that I'm going to explain, you absolutely 100% need to at least see your abs first, right? I don't think anyone should be gaining muscle and eating and doing what I'm about to explain to you guys now until you've actually got to the point as to where you're ready to gain the muscle mass. And I mean, even if you're kind of a skinny fat person, like, you should still lose body fat first. You should still focus on seeing your abs. I've coached guys before that they've not really had much muscle. Like, they're, maybe starting at around kind of 70 kilos or something like that. And they're like, well, in what direction do I go in, Chris? Like, I want to build muscle. If they're still fat or they've still got belly fat and they've got no shape to their physique, like, they're going to be going through a deficit first. They're going to be getting lean. So we would initially focus on the lean part, getting them lean, seeing the abs, and then we would start building. So just to be clear on this video, if you still can't really see your abs, go and watch my video where I spoke about a 90-day plan to get lean. I'll link that in the description. Follow that. follow that plan, get in shape from doing that. Then you can start focusing on this, because this is when you start really looking at trying to build muscle. So anyway, that's the first thing. Now, let's just assume that we're there. Right, we've got abs, or pretty much, we can see the kind of outline of abs. I'm like, right, now I need to build some muscle. So what you actually want to do is that you want to work out your maintenance calories first. Okay, now you might already know this if you've just been on a bit of a journey and you've obviously been calorie tracking. You kind of might understand now where your maintenance calories are. But if you don't, then you can simply take your weight in pounds and you can times it by 15. Right, so when you've got your weight in pounds and you times it by 15, what you're then going to want to do is literally just increase those calories by 200. So you've got your maintenance, let's just say for, easy maths, your maintenance calories is around like 2,500. For a lot of guys, that's probably about right. 2,500 calories per day is your maintenance. You literally might just want to push your calories up to 2,700 to start with, right? Really, really simple. Like, you're in a lean surplus. You're not needing to eat in excess of 1,000 calories or 2,000 calories where you're just going to gain a bunch of fat. You're just eating 200 calories above your maintenance, which is really simple. And you would start there. And then all you would do is you would just start tracking your meals daily. Okay. If you are still not tracking and you're really wanting to build muscle fast, you're just guessing and you are literally going to stay small because you might not be eating enough food. Yeah, you might not be eating enough, right? If you're not eating at least that 2,700 every single day, you're not going to gain muscle, because building muscle is just like being in a deficit where you have to be consistent with that number. Okay, you have to be consistent in a deficit with fat loss to be able to lose fat. You need to be consistent with a surplus in terms of gaining muscle mass. So you're going to stay small. Okay, so you need to make sure that you are essentially tracking those calories. Now, in terms of how we split, the macronutrients up and how we go about that, it's actually really simple. It doesn't need to change or differ a huge amount from obviously if you were trying to lose body fat. So what we would do firstly is we would look at protein intake. Protein intake is always going to be relative to your weight. So again, if you're a 200-pound guy, 200 grams of protein per day for you to build muscle is probably going to be about right. 180 gram protein per day if you're a 180-pound guy. Protein doesn't really change in a fat loss phase or a building phase. It doesn't change. It's a variable that always stays the same. As long as your weight doesn't change a huge amount, protein's never really going to change. But if your weight does increase or decrease, your protein intake can kind of slowly start to follow the weight as well. And you're always going to want to be around, again, like 1.8 to 2.2 grams per kilo, again, is roughly where you would lie. So you can be on the upper end, be on the lower end, but that is roughly where protein intake should be. I would always probably go on the upper end just because protein has a lot of other benefits to it as well. In terms of your fat intake, I would keep fats anywhere between kind of 25% to 30% of your calories. So if you've already worked out your calories are at 2,700, work out how much of that should come from fat, from around 25 to 30% roughly. And again, I'm going to put my calculator in this description of this video. If you just want to go away and use that calculator, it's going to save you from going through this process. But again, I'm going to talk you guys through it anyway. So we've got our fat intake. Let's say that's around 25-30%. If I was to take a guess at 2,700 calories, I reckon that's probably around like 70 to 80 grams of fat roughly, which is about right. Don't want to be neglecting fat, as fat has got a lot of benefits hormonally, and it's a really important macronutrient. And then we would just literally make up whatever is left with carbohydrates. So whatever is left out of the rest of those calories, they go towards carbs. Carbs are actually really important when you're building muscle because insulin is the most anabolic hormone. And if we can shift insulin and push insulin, obviously around training, which is what we do when we have carbohydrates, then obviously we're going to be in a much more anabolic state to build muscle. So actually carbs around workouts when you're trying to build muscle, super important. So make sure you have your carbs at roughly whatever is left. And then right there, you're going to have the kind of perfect balance when it comes to having your macro split. Now, then we need to start looking at meals. I would always recommend, and this is going to, if you've been watching my content, you've probably seen strategies that I've made around building your meals, but I would have the same core meals, all right? This might be considered boring, but it works, okay? And I mean, meal one, meal two, pretty much the same. When you're trying to build muscle, you don't want to overcomplicate. There's certain meals that you need to make sure you hit your protein intake, you get your calories in, so just make it super simple. Like my go-to breakfast, probably when I'm looking to gain muscle, would have been like massive bowl of protein oats. Right? I don't have that as much now because I'm not trying to gain muscle. My brain function is what I value the most, so I have a higher fat breakfast at the moment because it helps with my brain. But if I was really trying to gain muscle, I'd probably eat a ton of protein porridge in the morning because I feel like that was a really good way to start the day. What I did when I was really trying to gain muscle, like when I was super skinny, when I had to push my calories quite high because my output was quite high and I was obviously very young, I used to literally have a massive shake in the morning. So I'd literally have like 100 grams of oats, all in my NutriBullet, banana, peanut butter, whey protein, bunch of other berries and stuff as well. So I'd have this shake in the morning, and yeah, this would pretty much start me off for the day. And I'd keep a lot of my meals, as I said, pretty structured, pretty basic. You have to make sure you have a simple approach to your nutrition. Now, of course, you can still have variety. You can still have a different meal in the evening. You can obviously have a few meals rotated, but it's just making sure that you don't make things more complicated. And that is a problem with having too much variety when it comes to your nutrition. So you have to make sure that you keep things nice and simple, still track your calories, be consistent with that, but have the core meals that are similar each day, because again, it makes life so much more simple. If we want to gain muscle as effectively, as quick as possible, having a really complicated setup with your nutrition is just not something that's going to work. So simplicity, obviously meals that you enjoy is super important. You don't need to be eating, 6-7 meals per day. You can still stick with 3 or 4 core meals per day. So keep your nutrition consistent, keep it well structured. This is the key thing. When it comes to training, guys, very, very simple. Now, what I would do is I would just train 4 days per week. Now, to be honest, I was a bit of a gym bro back in my 20s, like probably we all were. I trained way too much, didn't need to train as much as I did, sometimes like 6-7 days a week, which probably stalled my progress to a certain extent. So if I was to go back, or I was now in a position where I was looking to really gain the muscle, I would only train 4 days per week. Literally, I would just do a push, a pull, a legs, and an upper. I would train my upper body 3 days per week, and I would do one hard, intense leg day. Right? I wouldn't need to do another leg day, because if you hit legs hard enough on just a one-off day, I don't believe that you need to go back and do them twice. If you've got the time and you really want to improve on your legs, then you could do 2 leg days per week. You could do an upper, lower. So 4 days, 2 pure upper body, 2 pure lower body. That could also work. Or you could do a 5th day and you could just bring in a second leg day. But for most guys that are looking, maybe don't have a lot of time, I think 4 days per week is the sweet spot. And if you do push, pull, upper, that's going to give you 3 opportunities to build your upper body. 1 or 2 of those days are a little bit more specific. So push and pull, obviously you're focusing more on specific muscle groups. Upper body is a bit more of a broad one. But if you're hitting big compound movements, that is going to be the blueprint when it comes to you gaining muscle. The most important thing about going to the gym is firstly consistency. You can't just be doing 1 session 1 week and then going and doing 4. You've got to be consistent. Pick a number of days that you can stick to and be consistent with all year round. The odd week, if you drop a session, obviously it's not the end of the world. Life is always going to be life, but you have to try and remain as consistent as possible with your training. The second and the key thing when it comes to building muscle and actually making sure that you do this effectively, it's progressive overload, guys, right? This is you getting stronger. You could literally go to the gym 4 days per week for a year, and if you lifted the same weights every single week, your physique is not going to look that much different. It is just not really going to stand out. You're not really going to have seen much. And scary thing is, this is pretty much what a lot of guys do. They literally go to the gym repetitively and they don't get stronger. They don't track their workouts, they don't track their lifts, they don't have any idea of what they did the week before, and they lift the same weight every single week. Guys, your body is not just going to adapt because you went to the gym. Think about this properly. If you just put the same level of stress on your body, it has no reason to change because it's got used to that level of stress. This is how we adapt. Think about our ancestral days. We adapt as human beings from something being challenging, so our body has to overcome. Our body has to adapt to the stress and the stimulus that's been put on it. So if we don't give that stimulus to our muscles, they aren't going to change. So the most important thing when you're looking to gain muscle is you going to the gym and getting stronger. And you can track your lifts. You can use apps. There's an app called Strong. You can literally go old school. You can use a pen and paper. You have to make sure that you know what you did last week so you can improve. And the reality is that if you're eating enough food and you're in a surplus of calories, then your lifts are going to improve quickly. Like you are going to see a difference quite quickly with your lift. You should see that most weeks there's some sort of progression on lifts. Like not every week, but even a small progression. This is going to dictate whether you're actually eating enough food. And if your lifts stop going up, which I used to see this happen sometimes, if your weight slowly isn't increasing that much, and you should be looking to gain maybe around 1% of your body weight per month, maybe 1.5% if you're a bit newer, which isn't a lot, right? But if you see that happen, then you might need to increase your calories a little bit more. So maybe push by another 100, push by another 200, because if progress stalls, your body needs more fuel and you can push that surplus up a little bit. So then you would maybe add another 100 calories. And then maybe if you hit another stumbling block, another 100 calories. So you can see it's very small. The incremental increases of calories are tiny. And honestly, like you don't need to do this that often, trust me. But having that there is an understanding. So if you are getting stronger, If your weight's not moving, then you can start to increase your food a little bit. But honestly, if you are not progressively overloading on your physique in the gym, you are not going to see a difference. If you're trying to gain muscle and you're not logging your workouts, so you don't know what you did the week before on those compound movements, those big presses, those big pulls, those big leg movements, you are not gaining muscle. You're just simply wasting time in the gym. So that would exactly be the blueprint when it comes to training. Supplements, I would be taking 5 grams of creatine when it comes to building muscle. This is kind of the main one, essentially, from a muscle gain perspective. I'm not going to run through supplements in depth in this video, but creatine is the most scientifically backed supplement when it comes to gaining muscle mass and getting stronger. It will help you get maybe an extra 1 or 2 reps out per workout, which might not seem that significant, but over time that will play a part in, again, the progressive overload of getting stronger and seeing a difference in terms of muscle gain. So you can start with a loading phase of creatine. Some people say that that's worth it, some people don't, which means that you would take 20 grams of creatine for the first week, just literally split that however you want, and then you just take 5 grams consistently after that to kind of just keep those stores loaded, right? So very simple. Creatine is safe. There's no risk with it. I pretty much recommend it to every guy, every girl that I work with, because there is a lot of benefits to taking it. Steps, you want to keep it around 10 to 12,000 per day, okay? Again, like you still want to be doing steps. Like staying active is important. This is we're not dirty bulking here. We're having a healthy metabolism. We're moving about. This is going to massively help you when it comes to appetite. So like if you are someone that struggles to eat sometimes, moving around more is naturally going to keep that appetite nice and high. And also digestion, guys, right? Digestion improves when we move more. We know that after we've been through, when we go for a walk, we feel so much better. So that, and again, is why steps is so important. If you want to digest your food really well, then it's important to keep moving around, right? And making sure we're getting our steps in. So yeah, be consistent with the 10 to 12,000. You don't need to be doing huge amounts of cardio, but you do need to be staying active. You still need to be moving. Probably would recommend that you still do a bit of cardio, which can be done however you want. If you'd like to do a sport, or if you'd just like to go running, you can do a little bit of that as well. But I would say that the most important thing realistically is going to be steps. 3 liters of water per day minimum, and if you're a heavier guy, maybe even 3 or 4. If you live in a hot country, push it up even more. Water is super important for hydration, for energy, just in general. Like it's important we are staying hydrated. Sleep has got to be at least 7 hours a night. Again, guys, this is when you grow, right? If you are not sleeping, you are not growing. So you need to be sleeping at least 7 hours. You might get away with 6, but you're not going to build muscles effectively. So a bit of a trade-off, but 6 quality hours could be enough. But ideally 7, 8 hours of sleep every night. If you want to build muscle with the highest rate you can, keep testosterone production super high, keep growth hormone production super high, you need to be trying to sleep and get consistently good sleep as well, and prioritize that as much as possible. This is honestly one of the most important things when it comes to gaining muscle. Bit less recently, just due to the time zone that I work in, but I've always been a guy that's got 8 hours of sleep a night. And, you know, I make it work around my schedule. I just get up a little bit earlier, I go to bed earlier. I just make sure that I get that consistent sleep, but I still make sure I get everything done throughout the day anyway. So that's really important. And this is pretty much it, guys. This is really what you need to focus on. It's not that hard. Just do these basics and have this foundation in place, and you will build a lot of muscle, and you will do this over a pretty decent time frame as well. Most guys really struggle with this, okay? The reason is that they are just super inconsistent, because fat loss gives you very instant feedback. With fat loss, you can see quickly, oh, I'm losing scale weight. Great, I've dropped another pound this week. Waist measurements come down. Oh, wow, I'm starting to see a difference with my abs already. It gives you much instant feedback, so it keeps guys way more motivated, because they're like, oh, I can see a difference. Whereas muscle gain doesn't, because it's slow, guys. Like I said, when you're losing fat, you're probably at about 1% of your weight per week. When you're gaining muscle, 1% per month is probably a good rate of weight gain. So the difference is pretty big. So you have to stay consistent. You've got to stay motivated. You've got to understand there's not going to be as much instant feedback when it comes to gaining muscle. It's a little bit more delayed. A bit more of a delayed gratificational mindset is really important. But guys always quit early. Guys never really get to that point where they've gained enough muscle to make staying in shape effortless. Because if you want a healthy metabolism, which is essentially having more muscle, because muscle burns calories at doing absolutely nothing, you need to probably build at least 10 to 20 pounds of muscle if you're a guy, realistically, if not potentially more. I'd probably say that I've built around 20 to 30 pounds. From when I got to my kind of adulthood, I say that's how much I've built. And when I say make staying in shape effortless, I really mean it does. Like, I don't even need to try anymore about staying in shape, because I've built enough muscle, my habits and my mindset's conditioned to a good place, but I've just built enough muscle to make it easy. Like, even if I have a bad weekend, right? Like, it doesn't really affect me. My metabolism is super high, and that's not just because I'm, you know, younger or whatever. Like, I mean, I'm 30 now. So, you know, it's not just because of that. It's because of the fact that I've gone through the stages of building a lot of muscle over a few years, and it's helped me keep my metabolism super healthy. So once you get lean as a guy, great, good feeling. You've got to a good position, probably further than a lot of guys can get to. You've got the six pack, you feel great, you can see your abs, but that's not the journey over yet. You must prioritize gaining muscle if you want to stay healthy, stay in shape all year round, and just make staying in shape effortless. So follow this blueprint, look to add around 5, 10, 20 pounds of muscle over the probably next year or so. More than that, if you're a natural guy, it's going to take time. Of course it is, but that's the whole point. It's the journey, right? You don't ever complete it. The journey is constantly being better every single day, embracing it, enjoying it, and not always looking at the end. There is no end date, guys. You're always going to be improving your physique, whether that's aesthetically, cardiovascularly, whatever it is that you're wanting to work towards. The game never ends. So follow this blueprint, guys. I hope you found this super useful. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you hit the bell notification so you're notified every single time I post. Hit subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.